Robin in New York. Robin, hi, how can we help you tonight?
I was wondering if we could get into a little more about the physical changes that happen during gestation. And I understand from the reading that I've done that the physical gender is set fairly early on in gestation, but then the brain development happens later in gestation, and that's where the physiological, mechanical differences occur. I'm just talking about the physical structures here, the very basic genetics of what's going on, and the gestational differences. And I think it's important that we discuss this so that we get this information out there so that people can understand beyond the duality of only just two physical genders. That's why I wanted to bring this point up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's an oversimplification, but I feel like what you're asking around is this idea that maybe sexual hardware develops and then sexual software develops later and may not necessarily be entirely congruent, which seems to potentially be a valid understanding of things. We're still developing our understanding of how these things operate. I've seen some different fMRI research and some other ideas that might point to that idea, but it seems to still be really developing. Do y'all have anything to maybe add to that?
I wish I did. Unfortunately, this is not. Yeah, this is not my area of speciality of childhood development stages.
That said, I do know that two of my favorite trans ladies, Katie Montgomery and Saint Eve, are going to be putting out a video on the science of transsexuality and transgender people very soon. I've retweeted it on my Twitter page. I will continue to be boosting that. So that is going to hopefully be a really great beginner kind of primer for people who are skeptics, who want to be supportive and want to be allies and want that language and that scientific understanding. So I do not think that we have the scientific knowledge to fully answer your question, but that is definitely a resource that's coming up very soon that I will be broadcasting from my own personal pages.
Nice. Yeah, and I'll say I have a small collection of different research materials that I can make sure to put in the show notes for this episode. And even with all of that, I think it's beautiful and important that we're looking to understand these things, that we're increasing our knowledge and we are creating a better scientific data set to be able to wrap our head around some of this very confusing and difficult to pin down information. Even as we collect all of that data, though, I think it's very important that we recognize that while it may help people confirm or maybe better understand themselves, that we need to trust that people are who they say they are. And your personal experience is more important than whatever the results of a particular test or our understanding of fMRI or hormone research or anything else.
Exactly. Those are great points, all. The reason I bring this up is that I live in a very rural area, and I interact with a lot of conservatives who see things in very, very binary ways. And I've been trying to develop the language to reach people and get them to understand that it is deeper, and it is a physical thing. Because a lot of times, people that I talk to simply discount the personal experiences that people are going through. And I try to get these folks to understand that no, there is a physical component. This isn't just people randomly deciding to do things. There's actually a hardwired physical component between both the physical DNA versus the as you put it, the software. And that's why I think that is good for us to mention this periodically from time to time when we're discussing this topic, so that we can make sure that we understand the scientific background of how these things are developing in the human species, and I think that this is a very important component that we, even though, as you pointed out, is in its infancy, this is vital that we explore this and we keep talking about this and we keep reminding the doubters that no, there actually is physical evidence to support these things that you folks over there on the other side are so eager to write off.
Exactly. And I really just want to commend you. Thank you for being committed to explaining these things to people who would push back on them. I know for me, I spend a lot of my time, maybe too much of my time. I'll be talking about that with my new therapist from Glimmer. I spend a lot of time online trying to explain this to people, and it does take a lot out of me, especially because I happen to be non-binary, and as I'm coming to realize, probably accepting the trans label too. And so for me, it can be extremely exhausting and emotionally draining. And the thing that makes me feel the best and the most supported and the most seen is to have other people who have done the work of educating themselves come to that defense as well and be like, hey, I might not be a part of this community, but here are the facts. Here's what I've learned. Here's what you can do to be more supportive yourself. That by itself is a huge, huge thing. So thank you for doing the work and asking the questions. That's very helpful to people.
Absolutely. Well, thank you guys so much. This is a great show.
I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for calling in.